Hello and welcome to the Innsbruck Armoured Car Regiment channel. Today we'll be covering the events of August the 18th to August the 21st of 1944, Flea's Pocket Part 2. So without not much further ado, August the 18th, B Squadron set off from Tallyboys to recce the area of Bataan-le-Lac, to Échouchi, to Fromenteil. C Squadron set off from Bruges to recce the road towards Échouchi, with the intention of keeping the British headquarters informed on the location of Allied forces. B Squadron managed to reach Bataan-le-Lac at 1100 hours, but the bridge over the River Orne was observed to be destroyed as Lieutenant Thomas's scout car was approaching it. Lieutenant Greason carried out an inspection of the bridge on foot and was wounded by a sniper. He was extracted and returned to the squadron headquarters for medical attention on the back of Lieutenant Heard's scout car, but due to the severity of his wounds, Lieutenant B.D.S. Grierson died en route. Furthermore, Lieutenant Heard was wounded on his return journey to Bataan-le-Lac, where a shell landed near his scout car. B Squadron were prevented from wrecking south from Bataan-le-Lac along the River Orne due to a screen of enemy tanks and anti-tank guns, and therefore were unable to close the pocket. C Squadron carried out a counter reconnaissance of Échouchi, where they found the armoured forces of General Leclerc. These forces were irritated as they had been recently informed they were to hold for 2 days. A Squadron, who were following up all day, eventually reached Échouchi, and a little east of the town, Lieutenant H. Ashby made first contact with the American armoured forces, the first British forces to do so in the area. By evening, a German force was located in a small pocket on the eastern bank of the River Orne, between Bataan-le-Lac and Échouchi, which were retreating over the river. The Allied forces had advanced so quickly that there was still a number of German tanks and pockets of resistance behind the forward troops. These attacked several columns throughout the day before being disposed of. However, it wasn't just the enemy who were causing chaos. US forces were appearing at every turn as they bulldozed their way through, and French and Polish forces engaged each other for a number of hours before finally identifying each other. August the 19th. By morning, the German force had retreated over the River Orne, and at first light A Squadron carried out a patrol along the River Échouchi to Bataan-le-Lac, supported by infantry from the 3rd American Armoured Division and a group of 200 Maquis who attached themselves to A Squadron. While the Maquis lacked in training, they made up for in sheer bravery, and their sole objective, to kill as many Germans as possible. They attacked German infantry positions from which they suffered heavy and at times unnecessary casualties. Their actions did leave a lot to be desired, and the Innsbruck Corps tried their best to help. At 10:45 hours, A Squadron was recalled from their patrols of the River Orne, and in the afternoon were ordered to make its way to Forêt de Petit-Goffin, a large forest west of Argentan. Upon reaching the forest, patrols were sent out to the nearby American Formations headquarters to ascertain the American positions and the situation of the southern flank of the Flea's Pocket. The information was obtained and the 11th Armoured Division was given the full disposition of the 80th and 90th US Infantry Divisions, as well as the 2nd French Armoured Division. B Squadron had spent the day in reserve at Saint-Hilaire-de-Bruges. A Squadron were followed up by the rest of the regiment, which harboured in the forest Forêt de Petit-Goffin for the night. The Maquis went about rounding up collaborators. The women had their heads shaved, while the men were beaten, and a few were even executed. Although these actions greatly upset some of the Innsbruck Corps who objected to these actions without a fair trial, it was deemed best not to get involved with local affairs, as it had to be remembered that for the past 4 years the French had been subject to the misery and oppression from their occupiers. August the 20th. The regiment spent the day in reserve apart from a slight scare when it was reported that German forces in Argentan might try and escape the pocket by going through the forest, Forêt de Petit-Goffin. This report turned out to be false and the regiment had a quiet day. At midnight, the regiment had still not been given the information as to the situation ahead of them. However, it was realised that the US swing on the right flank had gone far forward and that the French 2nd Armoured Division had also been sent eastward towards Paris. August the 21st. Argentan had been cleared, and it was now time for the 11th Armoured Division, along with the Innsbruck Corps, to start moving again. The Innsbruck Corps regiment were assigned to the task of leading the 11th Armoured Division along 2 routes, the first heading towards Gais, and the second heading towards Saint-Héroult-de-Montfort. Furthermore, they were tasked with sending patrols to the southeast from Bourg-Saint-Léonard to keep in touch with the American forces. Leading this operation was A Squadron and C Squadron, which were sent off early in the morning along the 3 routes. The first point along the main route was Chambois, a village which had been found to be in an absolute shambles. The reason being was this was the point where the Fleece Pocket was closed when the Polish and American forces had linked up. As a result, a bypass route had to be located. Lieutenant R.L. Richards and Trooper de Kleem of A Squadron negotiated a track south of the road at Cormeilles. Along this route, their scout car hit a mine that had been linked to a large explosive charge. The scout car was launched into the air and over a 10-foot tall hedgerow and killed both of the men instantly. In order to ensure a way through, D Squadron were tasked with carrying out a reconnaissance of a third, longer route to the northeast that would then loop back down to La Fatelle-Fenelle. Along the route, a detour had to be made due to mines and a roadblock. Later on, Sergeant E. Brickenall's patrol destroyed an enemy patrol and reported the village of Tichenville clear, but the bridge blown. Here, D Squadron headed north to Pont Chardon, where the main bridge was also found to have been destroyed. However, a smaller secondary bridge was found intact, from which the squadron headed south to Les Sape, which was found to be strongly held with no viable detour route. For his actions during these events, Sergeant Brickenall was awarded the military medal. After some difficulty finding an intact route over the River Dives, C Squadron, along with British troops and armour, started to arrive on the outskirts of Gase by the late afternoon, to find it still occupied by the enemy. B Squadron spent the day in reserve, but had relocated to Almenèche. By evening, the 11th Armoured Division had taken Gase and had pushed on through the town. Throughout the day, contact was maintained with the Americans on the division's right flank by the Inzicourt's patrols. Losses over these days were 3 killed, 1 injured and 1 Dingo scout car knocked out. References are on screen, and I hope you can join me on August the 22nd in the next video in the Inzicourt War Diary series. Cheerio.